Please everybody join the crystal ball room for the session. Let's begin with the session number 4 on sustainable cities and urban regions. We have 3 technical presentations in this session. First, I will request our respected speakers, Ms. Sabeen Shah, Dr. Ghulam Rasool, and Mr. Fazil Noor to please come forward and have a seat in the front rows. Our first presentation is on educational interventions in Thar, Lessons in Sustainability by Ms. Sabeen Shah of Thar Foundation. Ms. Sabeen Shah is working as Manager Corporate Social Responsibility at Thar Institute. Her work has been influential in social development initiatives, specifically for underprivileged areas of Sindh, Pakistan, specifically Thar. She has run numerous programs towards access to education, human development, nutrition, women empowerment, labor rights, and in other various social sectors. I request Ms. Sabeen Shah to please come to the dais and brief us about her interventions in education sector, specifically in Thar.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, congratulations to NED University and all the partners who have organized this wonderful event, which was very much needed. And again, I thank you. I thank the NED University for inviting me over here and showcasing the work on sustainability that we have done in Thar Pakar. So I'm going to begin with my presentation. Please do forgive me if it gets too long. I've tried to make it as short as possible, and I'll try to skip a few slides. But at the end of each sector, I will be showing a video that would kind of summarize the work that we're doing. So we can start with the presentation. The purpose of Thar Coal Project, a prosperous Thar. So basically, our vision is to ensure that we provide quality life to the principal stakeholders of the Thar Coal project through sustainable and graduated interventions. We're also trying to make Islamkot Taluka, where our project is the project is close to Islamkot Taluka, is in Islamkot Taluka, and what we've tried to do is try to make the Taluka SDG compliant also, for which we have basically categorized the SDGs in 3 segments. The first one is a prioritized goal. That means that these would be they're already existing or will be existing in the future. And then we have the overarching goals, which basically will be met through the prioritized goals. And then we have 2 goals that are not applicable to our project or to the area, and we would be doing advocacy for that. So the first thing that we're doing in CSR, basically in Thar Foundation, is ensuring that our children of Thar Pakar get quality education and they have access to quality education. So it's just not education that we focus on quality education. Now, back in 2017, when I joined the organization, I was sent for a survey, and what the communities basically told me was that we do not want anything, just give us good schools. So the school that you see on the left hand side over here, the hut or called the Chona over there, was the school present over there. When Thar Foundation started its interventions, on the right hand side is what we created. So we gave in each village 9-room schools with 8 washrooms, boundary wall, and all these schools are basically solarized. As of now, we have 4,061 students in 23 school units. That means we have 23 schools running over there with a staff of 147, and approximately 47% are females. Thar Foundation is very big on women empowerment, gender equality, and we try to focus and bring in the females also into the field so that they can also contribute positively. In addition to that, we are piloting a project called the Mother Tongue Based Multilingual Education, And for that, Thar Foundation basically provides sponsorship to TCF for developing a curriculum in which the children will be learning, they're starting their learning from their mother tongue, which is Dhatki, moving on to Sindhi, and then Urdu, and finally English. So over a span of 10 years, children will be fluent in spoken and written Dhatki, Sindhi, Urdu, and English. We also have students that migrate, so we've got seasonal migration going on, and our children were losing on education. So Talimi Basta is something that we came up with. So 50% of the syllabus is actually packed in this bag in the form of activities and games. And this is what we give to our children when they migrate, and when they come back. If anything is missing, the children, so the material is such that they can actually replace it from natural material found anywhere in the desert or close to their homes. Another intervention that we did, because we believe in women empowerment, we realized that a lot of schools were a lot of girls were dropping out once they completed their primary education. So for that, to ensure that our female students do not lose on their right to education, we trained 2 girls from the villages who currently run these rickshaws, and we basically gave them training, got their licenses, and now these girls take other girls from their village to the school for secondary education. We've also ensured that in each of our primary schools, we've got computer labs set up for our children, because in the near future and from today and in the present, IT and technology is the way forward. So we are equipping our children with the basic skills so that once they reach the secondary school, these things are not alien to them. We've also, provided school buses to the children so that girls especially can, go to school. In addition to that, we also provide scholarship programs. We've got, as I said, IT labs for the youth also. The concept of birth registration certificates was alien to the people of Tharparkar, especially Block 2. So we have also now, started with the help of the government departments, we are now issuing birth registration certificates also, and telling our community the importance of this document. In addition to that, nowhere in Tharparkar had medical screenings of children been a norm. And Thar Foundation created history by introducing school health screening programs for all our school children, and not only for Thar Foundation school children, but also the government schools that are present over there. So we basically look after our entire communities. And we also plan for excursions. The boat that you see over there is actually in the desert. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Gorano Pond, but miracles have happened ever since that pond has been created artificially. Our children basically they go over there for excursions, so they have an exposure to boat rides and all the things that you would find in an urban city school. You would actually find that in Thar Foundation schools in the desert of Tharparkar, Block 2. Oh, sorry. And this is just to summarize the part of education that we do.
मेरा नाम रंजन है, मैं गोट मानसिंह बिल थरपारकर से तहलीक रखता हूँ। मेरा नाम सुगड़ है और ये है मेरी कहानी। मेरे अबू था, उसने कहा था कि लड़कियां हमारे गांव के नहीं पढ़ते तो हम अपनी लड़की को नहीं छोड़ते क्योंकि ना पढ़े। लड़की तालीम हासिल के नहीं कर सकती और लड़की को सिर्फ घर का ही काम करना है और स्कूल नहीं छोड़ते। मैंने कहा मेरे साथ पढ़ेगी, कोई दूसरा लड़का तो नहीं इसके साथ बैठेगा, मैं भाई हूँ, मैं इसके साथ बैठेगा, हम दोनों एक साथ इकट्ठे होकर पढ़ेंगे। मैंने मेरे बाबा को बोला गांव वालों की बात मत मानो और मेरी बात मानो। स्कूल में मुझे पढ़ने में बहुत शौक है और मैं पढ़ूंगी, अपनी मंजिल हासिल करूंगी। पहले हमारे गांव में एक झोपड़ी थी स्कूल, जो उसमें कोई भी नहीं पढ़ता, एक दिन आते हैं एक दिन नहीं आते, उसमें रेगुलर पढ़ाई नहीं होती थी। मुझे तालीम फर्स्ट हासिल की, थर्ड में फर्स्ट हासिल की, लेकर फिफ्थ तक फर्स्ट हासिल की। सेकेंडरी स्कूल हमें पहले दूर थी और हमको जाने में भी बहुत देर लगती थी। जब हमको थर फाउंडेशन वालों ने एक बस दी, जो हम बस में आसानी से स्कूल जा सकते हैं और हमारी पढ़ाई हासिल कर सकते हैं। हम अभी इस स्कूल में 9th क्लास तक पढ़ रहे हैं और भी हम चाहते हैं कि आगे बढ़ें। पहले हमारे गांव में हम 2 लड़कियां स्कूल आती थी और अब हमारे स्कूल में हमारे गांव की लड़कियां ज़्यादा आती हैं। हमारे वोट में बहुत सारे मसले हैं, बिजली का मसला, पानी का मसला, तो स्कूल का मसला, शहरों का हल तो दिया है, लेकिन एक स्कूल भी दिया है जिससे हम तैलीम हासिल कर रहे हैं। हमारी उम्मीद है कि हम तैलीम हासिल करके बड़े एक इंसान बनेंगे। तैलीम वो जरिया है जिसकी वजह से बदलाव आ सकता है। एजुकेशन इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल वेपन इन द वर्ल्ड। हम बदलेंगे और माशरा बदलेगा और थर बदलेगा पाकिस्तान।
There's more coming. So again, in addition to education, we also look after our community's health, and for that, many interventions have been, taking place. We have currently 5 hospitals/clinics and serving 6,000 people, 6,000 patients in a month, and we've got labs, the facilities of ultrasound, ECG, EPI services, nutrition, and the medicines are also given for free to the communities of Tharpakar of Block 2. We've also managed to make Block 2 tuberculosis and hepatitis free. We ensure that vaccinations and polio drops are given to our children. 90% population has been screened for hepatitis, and the cases that were diagnosed, they have been cured completely. So there were about 30 cases. Just a few glimpses of what we do over there. We're also on the way of constructing a 250 hospital by the name of Thar Foundation Hospital. The first phase basically includes constructing a 120 bed state-of-art hospital over there. So the work basically is ongoing. In addition to other initiatives in health, we also do camps, and so basically we also did a camp on prosthetic limbs, and we benefited 119 special cases. We also have a mobile bus, so mobile health bus, which basically mobile clinic which goes around different villages where people have difficulty or have less access to our hospitals. So these mobile clinics basically go in those villages. And to prevent the growing trend of suicides, Thar Foundation collaborated with the Sindh Mental Health Authority and various other departments, and we basically did a counseling service. It is an ongoing thing. Telehelp is also one of them. And the first psychological autopsy of 2020 registered suicide cases in Tharpakar was also done. Video chala.
मुंहिंजो नालो खुशीराम वल्द पेनुमल ॻोठ सुरंगवारी तालका इस्लामकोट डिस्ट्रिक्ट थरपारकर। इहो मुंहिंजी कहानी आहे।
पहले मैं इसको देखता था तो बड़ा दुख होता था, क्योंकि सारे गांव वाले बच्चे चले जाते थे, ये बैठा होता था, मोहताज था। बहुत जिंदगी नाजुक थी इसकी, घूमने फिरने में तकलीफ थी, स्कूल जाने में बिल्कुल तकलीफ थी।
में ॾाढी तकलीफ़ थींदी हुई, टंग कोन लॻल हुई त रांदि कोन खेॾी सघंदो हो ऐं स्कूल कोन वञी सघंदो हो, वञी ॿार कोन वञी सघंदो हो ॾाढी तकलीफ़ हुई
किसी दोस्त ने मैसेज दिया था तो एक टीम आएगी ये टांगे लगाने वाली तो हमने वो मैसेज सुन के उस तारीख पे गए हम सलामकोट बड़ी बड़ी टीम आई थी उधर तो लेडीज भी थी और डॉक्टर बड़े बड़े थे तो हमारी बहुत मदद की उधर उसको पैंट शूट पहनाए उतरवाए उसको टांग पहनाए और घुमाए फिराए हमें हाथ भी नहीं दिया वो सारा काम उसने किया कोई पैसे वैसा नहीं लिया हमारे थर फाउंडेशन उधर ही हमें गए उधर ही टांग लगवाए बड़ी खुशी होती है हम देखते हैं इसको ये खुद घूमता फिरता है तो स्कूल खुद जाता है और सारा काम जो हम जो बताते हैं वो काम करके आता है
स्कूल वञी सघां थो पढ़ी सघां थो रांदि खेली सघां थो ॿाहिरि वञी सघां थो घर जो कमु करे सघां थो शहर वञां थो महिरबानी थर फाउंडेशन मुंहिंजी टंग लॻाई
So now that I'm running out of time, I'm quickly going to skim through the rest of the presentation. So in addition to health education, we're also ensuring that our human resource is developed. We're also ensuring that we are providing work and opportunities of employment for our communities in Block 2 and all of Tharparkar. So for that, when the project was at its peak, you would be happy to learn that 74% of the people, including the management, was Thari. As far as skill development is concerned, 1600 plus trained for scaffolding, masonry, steel fixing, pipe fitting and driving. We also sent our Thari engineers to China. And now these engineers are basically working for our operations and maintenance at the power plant. We also have, in addition to these 75 students, 73 students, 75 students have also been enrolled in the Mithi Polytechnic Institute. And over here, basically, they are being given scholarships and they will be receiving a 3-year diploma in associate engineering. As far as human resources is concerned, we are also developing that. 25 Thari students were sent for IT skills training. And more than 100 drivers, out of which 15 were women, were trained in driving. We also have, yeah, that's about it over here. Ensuring that because in Tharparkar, as we all know, that there's scarcity of good quality water or water. So what we did was we also took over 10 government RO plants and we had our own 7 RO plants built. So we just to provide safe and safe drinking water for the residents of Islam Court. And we also, since we said that we believe in empowerment of women, we have also trained women RO operators who basically run these RO plants. So this is what the government RO plants looked like before, and after we took them over, this is what they look like. Our 12 local Thari women were trained to operate these RO plants. And this is our flagship program. Basically, 52 Thari women were trained to drive dump trucks, and if you ever get a chance to visit Block 2, you'd find them actually working over there in the field. We've also empowered our women who are good at stitching, so we basically gave them contracts to make uniforms for our management also, as well as for our students. We've also developed vendors, local vendors over there, and awarded approximately 2.5 billion worth of contracts to the local vendors. They are registered also. 3 of them are women. In addition to that, we also give grants to our, communities, and our priority is basically differently abled women or differently abled persons. In addition to that, it is also people who are living much, much below the poverty line, and also to widows. Over here you can see a picture of these women, especially at the bottom. This woman is differently abled and she runs her own store in the village of Jiandodars and earns a good amount of money to basically lead a decent life now. We also have Meals on Wheels program where 10 women were trained to provide food to my teachers as well as other people, for example, drivers and other community people. Resettlement is a very big thing because where coal mining is happening, there were 2 villages that had to be resettled, and we successfully managed to resettle a village with 172 households called New Seridars. It's a model village, and in addition to that, we are also in the phase of एक सेकंड अभी नीचे लाइएगा So the best thing about this successful public-private partnership is that we turned our affectees into beneficiaries. So how? Basically, for the lifelong of this project, people or the communities who have been resettled get an annual check of 1 lakh rupees. We're also now in the, on our way to resettling another village called Thario Halepota, for which the work has already been done, and in the next 2 to 3 years, this village will also be resettled. In addition to that, there has been, so where the Gorano pond is, we have also, though this does not come in block 2, but because it is a project influence area, what we did was we have set up RO plants over there, schools, as well as dispensaries, and a compensation of 1 lakh to 502 households. Aladino Hajam is again another another village which was resettled recently, and there were 16 households in this village. Under our village improvement plan, because what happened was that when we started resettling these people, our communities who were not affected by the project started saying that you've got to give us something also. So we started this village improvement plan in which we benefited 9,000 beneficiaries. We provided 298 pit latrines, we gave 84 smokeless stoves, 141 solar households systems were given, and 80 solar street lights. Taking care of our environments, we've so far planted more than 1 million trees now. We've also set up a green park in block 2. We've also set up a zoo over there for our children, and also a merry-go-round has been installed over there. We also do biosaline agriculture, an appleberry orchard and aloe vera plantation. So basically appleberry is distributed amongst the communities. Never heard of fish in the desert, but Thar Foundation made it possible. So we have in the Gorano pond more than 1 lakh plus fish seeds were given by the government of Sindh, which were then let in the pond, and basically what we see over here is more than 12,000 kg of fish was distributed in 1,500 households. We also have a sector which looks after disasters. So basically, in the recent floods, we also distributed 665 ration bags, 500 mosquito nets, coolers, rechargeable lights, and food was provided for a good 15 days to the communities as well as to the other people who were migrating. Medical aid was also provided, and our mobile clinics were basically going in areas where clinics were not available. COVID again, we ensured that we established a hospital, a separate section for COVID patients. Fires are also taken care of immediately. So Odani was one village that was in which 378 to 280 houses were burnt, and we rehabilitated that village. Fodder was also distributed during the time of COVID. And comments from Mr. Neil Boney, Resident Coordinator of United Nations in Pakistan, after his visit to Tharkol Block 2, is also something that gives us a lot of courage to go on and to keep doing the good work that we're doing in the foundation for improving the quality of quality of life for our communities. वो वाली वीडियो चला दें women empowerment की.
मेरा नाम सिंगारी बाई, गांव जिंदोदर, ब्लॉक 2। यह मेरी कहानी। ऐसा तो कोई पढ़ाई का माहौल नहीं था, कोई जॉब का नहीं था। हम खेतें करते थे, बस पानी भरते थे, घर का झाड़ू पोछा, खाना पीना, यही काम करते थे। जब शादी हुई तो मैंने मेट्रिक का 9वीं का शादी से बाद में इम्तिहान किया। तकरीबन 25 किलोमीटर इतना दूर होता था, तो हम ऊँट पे इम्तिहान देने जाते थे। बहुत मुश्किलात थी। हमको पता चला तो कंपनी में यह काम चल रहा है, जॉब के लिए खवातीन को रख रहे हैं। तो हम गए साइड पे, वहाँ पर हमने जो फार्म भरवाए उसने मैडम जाना रहा थी जब, तो उसने हमारा इंटरव्यू लिया, तो इंटरव्यू में हम पास हो गए। हमको तो गाड़ी चलाने का पता ही नहीं था, हमने कभी सोचा ही नहीं था, यहाँ माहौल नहीं था कोई गाड़ी चलाते हुए। हमने खवातीन को देखी नहीं थी। हम ट्रेनिंग चालू की, एक दिन दूसरे दिन तीसरे बेहतरी आती हुई हमारा खौफ खत्म हो गया। ग्राउंड में ट्रेनिंग होती थी, मोड़ होते थे, एल रेस करते थे, एट मेरे जो गाड़ी चलाते थे ट्रेनर थे वो भी सिखाते थे, अच्छे वाला सिखाए हमको। कोई अभी तो कोई थोड़ी मुश्किल जो होती थी खत्म होती थी। अभी तो कोई मुश्किल नहीं है। हमने घर भी बनाया है इस्लाम कोट में, अच्छे से अभी वहाँ रह रहे हैं, तो अच्छा है माहौल, शहर है, बच्चा पढ़ रहा है, हमारा माशाल्लाह घर अच्छा चल रहा है। मेरी और दूसरी औरतों की जिंदगी बदलने के लिए शुक्रिया थर फाउंडेशन।
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ms. Sabeen Shah discussed initiatives from Thar Foundation, including Talimi Basta, development of IT lab in Thar Foundation schools towards education, initiatives like mobile bus and tele-help services towards health, employment opportunities at Thar Foundation, and initiatives such as technical education towards economic growth for the upliftment of the whole community. Our next presenter is Dr. Ghulam Rasool. He is presently head of Climate Change Program of International Union for Conservation of Nature IUCN in Pakistan. Dr. Rasool is a climatologist with professional career over 3 decades, and he retired as Director General Pakistan Meteorological Department. Today he will talk about Pakistan at the crossroad of climate change impacts. Sir, please join the stage.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, and very good morning, all of you. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organization of this conference, international conference, which has conceived very impressive themes which are covering all dimensions of our interventions under changing climate. I would like to start with just a quick reminder on global warming definition for the students who are attending this session. So radiations coming to the Earth system, some of them are trapped in the system which is covered with the envelope of GHGs, and part of that is going out to the atmosphere. What went wrong to this system after Industrial Revolution? The GHG emissions increased, and the envelope of GHGs around the Earth system, that got thicker and thicker, and that started blocking more outgoing radiations in the Earth system. So Earth system getting warming from that those additional trapped radiations is called global warming. And that global warming is that additional heat, although this is less than the total heat contained by the planet, but this is shattering all the norms of climate system dynamics. Recently, COP27 concluded in Egypt, and Secretary General of World Meteorological Organization, he released a statement on state of global climate, which highlights that the last 8 years are in the row to be the warmest years over Earth. The hottest one is 2016, followed by 2020, and third ranking 2019, and so on. That additional heat has created devastating flooding in different regions of the world, forest fires, drought, and extreme heat waves in South Asia and Europe. Another important indicator of global warming is sea level rise. Although we are not right now taking very serious, but we can feel the consequences through intrusion of saline water into Indus Delta and coastal ecosystem. Sea level rise has doubled since 1993. In only 2.5 years, last 2.5 years, 10 millimeter sea level rise has been witnessed in global ocean system. Global mean temperature has risen to 1.2 degrees Celsius. Now imagine this additional 1.2 degrees Celsius compared to the pre-industrial era is creating so many problems. A rare triple dip of La Nina. La Nina is cooling of equatorial, tropical, Pacific waters which shatter the weather systems around the globe. That has entered in continuous third year. This is the first time in history of ensocycles. And climate change has been breaking all the records and myths which were associated with climate science. If we look at Pakistan, Pakistan's geographical position is in the heat surplus zone. Large population, limited capacity to tackle with the problems of climate change and poor infrastructure. That's why we are ranking among the top 10 according to German Watch. I have presented on this slide 120 years temperature records of 4 provinces, GB and AJK. You see, the trend is alarmingly high of rising temperature. If you look at the last 20 years, there is a sudden jump that happened after strong El Nino of 1997 and 98, which triggered 4 years long drought in Pakistan. And the increase in temperature is relatively minimal in Punjab and KP, which are receiving monsoon. But all the other provinces are following sharply increasing trend of temperature. Frequency of heat waves and duration is increasing continuously. Even these heat waves were not common in Gilgit-Baltistan mountainous areas. You might have not heard about 40 degrees Celsius temperature in Gilgit during the last century. But now this 40 degrees Celsius is occurring at least 2 to 3 weeks. Pakistan started witnessing climate change impacts over a period of 25 years. So first episode, which was very significantly related to climate change, that was El Nino of 1997-98. And we witnessed drought, which inflicted heavy losses to the economy. Then very strange event occurred when this drought was prevailing all over Pakistan. At that time in 2001, a cloudburst event occurred which produced 620 millimeter rainfall in only 10 hours in Islamabad, Rawalpindi. 2005 was important because that generated snow melt flooding in Indus. At that time, there was a heat wave condition prevailing in Gilgit-Baltistan from last week of May to first week of June. So that was really surprising. Nobody could understand the flood season shifting towards May and June. Then followed one thing I missed, 2007 was significant also because Yemen tropical cyclone landed near Pasni, affecting Balochistan and Sindh. It generated heavy downpour associated with stormy winds. 2010 floods are still live in our memory when large part of Pakistan was affected. Severe heat wave of 2015 in Karachi that took, unfortunately, more than 2,000 lives. After that, early warning system developed, and heat waves are occurring every year, but now institutions are well aware and they are taking preemptive measures. Then GLOF mentioned by Madam Nusrat in her presentation, in northern areas of Pakistan, Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, this glacial lake outburst flooding is now the #1 disaster that is creating a lot of problems. One slide which she has shown in her presentation, I have visited that area. There were lush green orchards over there, and very important building in that area. A rich person developed that farmhouse, and all that swept away. And this is very common. Let me share with you that normally these GLOF events, 1 or 2 per year, occur in Gilgit-Baltistan. But during this year, 2022, 31 GLOF events were recorded. 163 flash floods recorded in this mountainous area. That additional heat, what is doing, this is now adding the fuel to the hydrological cycle. Hydrological cycle is the thermodynamic engine. The heat which you are adding to this engine, this is now working vigorously. Therefore, very strong precipitation events are occurring. And in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, in mountainous areas, there is orographic lifting added to those climate changes, because monsoon is getting stronger. In next slide, I will share with you the mechanism of monsoon in Pakistan. There are 2 wings. One is generated over Bay of Bengal, and that travels along the foothills of Himalayas, reaches north of Pakistan. Therefore, we call Kashmir as gateway of monsoon for Pakistan. And other wing is from Arabian Sea. Usually, I was talking about that climate change is breaking all the myths. Usually, what happens if north wing is active, the Bay of Bengal is generating depressions, and depressions are moving to the north. Southern wing is dormant. If southern wing is active, then northern wing is dormant. But in 2022, all those myths have been broken. Both the wings were equally active, and most of the precipitation occurred in the southern half. It's not changing. Okay. Now I would like to share with you some highlights of year 22. This was a special year, and this has never been linked with those traditional meteorological conditions. It started with extended winter prolonged, and it ended in March. Immediately, heating started. There was no spring. Spring was eliminated. And that immediate heating made May and April and May, the warmest months of meteorological history of Pakistan. Due to that early summer heating, Gulf events started much earlier, and that heat which centered in central parts of Pakistan, that created strong heat low which attracted monsoon from Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Therefore, there was onset of monsoon earlier than the average 2 weeks at least. Then there were interactions of easterly waves and westerly waves which restricted the monsoon system over Sindh and Balochistan, and Sindh Balochistan received heaviest rain, breaking all the previous records. Floods, when the severe flooding occurred in 1929 in United India before partition. Walker, English scientist, he conducted a study and he predicted that such events return period will be 100 years. But another event in 2010 occurred. Immediately after 2010, when scientists predicted another 100-year return period for floods like 2010, a record-breaking flooding of 2022 occurred, which was very special in many ways, because both these flooding, usually it was said that warmest years are linked with El Nino. El Nino is warming of equatorial tropical Pacific Ocean, which is reverse of La Nina. So that myth is broken in 2010 and then 2022. So La Nina continued over 3 years. That prolonged winter, usually when winter is prolonged, we expect poor monsoon, because heating takes longer time to set up its rhythm. But it was surprising that heating started immediately, and strong heat low created earlier setup of monsoon. So this comparison of 2010 and 22 is quite interesting. But if we look at the precipitation amounts which occurred in all the provinces, AJK was the only area of Pakistan where monsoon precipitation was 5% below normal. Otherwise, several hundred times more than average. So usually monsoon concentrate in the northern parts of Pakistan. So therefore we call northern half of Pakistan receives more monsoon precipitation as compared to the southern one. But in 2022, it was reversed. Tropical cyclones and other threat, which is quite alarming. These were not, during the last century, not common visitors of Pakistan coast. But now, due to increasing sea level, sea surface temperature of Arabian Sea compared to Bay of Bengal, now Arabian Sea is generating more tropical cyclones as compared to Bay of Bengal. Fortunately, most of the tropical cyclones are moving towards Oman at this time. But 2007 was the special year when Yemen tropical cyclone landed near Pasni. over Pakistan coast. So this track can change. Due to changing climate, tracks of cyclones will change. We should get prepared for tropical cyclones also. Cryosphere, which is very rich asset of Pakistan, more than 7,000 glaciers in northern parts of Pakistan and 10 sub-basins of upper Indus Basin. Those are receding at a faster rate. This is just the example of recession of Siachen Glacier over the last 23 years. This is the slide which is showing the population increase and water availability. Water availability, I don't blame climate change. There is no contribution of climate change. Because if we assess the volume of water which we are receiving, that is more than 1950s. Although it is in the form of storms, but water as a whole, if we look at just the quantity is not reduced due to climate change. But population is increasing. The shareholders of that amount of water, those are increasing. Therefore, we are running into the scarcity zone. So this is flood water, which is these are the glimpses from 2022 floods. Future is not hopeful. Future is not optimistic. If we look at the future projections of next 2 decades, during the next 2 decades, monsoon will get more stronger as compared to the present state. And in the second half, monsoon will start weakening. And that weakening can cause a lot of problems for Pakistan. In all the cities, temperatures are projected to increase. If we look at the Paris Agreement restricts the countries which are the signatories of that accord to control emissions, to keep temperature less than 2 degrees Celsius, preferably 1.5 degree Celsius. But look at the attitude of global community, especially those major emitters. This is carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. So that is now increasing at 2 ppm per annum. If we look at the previous part, 1951 to 2000, year 2000, it was 1 ppm per annum. So in 21st century, we are still racing to increase carbon dioxide concentration. The latest data is showing that we have crossed 420 threshold also. Water will be the first victim of climate change. We are living between floods and droughts because without irrigation, we are arid country, and we depend upon monsoon. We depend upon our glaciers. Glaciers are contributing more than 70% to the river flows of Pakistan. So that frequency of drought and floods is expected to increase in future. So we have to live with these two extremes. When water will be at risk, then food security will be at risk and energy security will be at risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Dr. Ghulam briefed about the greenhouse gas effect and state of global warming and how, as per Global Climate Change Risk Index, Pakistan is highly vulnerable. He also gave overview of extreme climate events held in past 25 years in Pakistan, including severe heat wave, snow melt flood, and cloud burst event. He described in detail events of 2022, how the climate drastically changed and how first time southern region had received more rainfall than the northern region. Our next presentation is by Mr. Fazil Noor. Mohammad Fazil Noor is an architect, planner and development entrepreneur. Presently, he is working as associate professor at Sir Syed University of Engineering and Technology. He has worked as a development professional for over 10 years with World Bank, UN Habitat and other international organizations on housing and community development. Today he will brief us about standard tools and key performance indicators to measure sustainability in cities. Please sir, come forward.
So what is the left for? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. So I come after a very emotionally charged presentation by Sabeen Shah and a very knowledgeable presentation by Dr. Ghulam Rasool. I hope I will be able to justify my presence here. I will speak basically on a descriptive framework for understanding urban areas or communities. I have, as part of my research on urban and environmental design, I've been working and exploring different frameworks by the International Organization for Standards, and one of this standard relates to a descriptive framework for urban areas. And under the umbrella of the Pakistan Standards and Quality Control Authority, I lead a team which studies the sustainable cities and communities goals and how to reach them. So in this ISO, it is I think 37105, they describe or refer to sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising on the resources needs of the future generations. And resilience is the capacity of an organization or entity to adapt in a complex and changing environment. So this framework tells us that the city is an ecosystem. It does not consist of disparate or separated systems, but the layers there are layers, and the layers have sub-layers, and they work as systems, and these systems connect and interact with each other. And that is how the city progresses. So there is a network. So in this network, there are three basic uh, layers, and one of them is the environment, the second is the society, and the third is the interaction that takes place between the society and the environment. And this is how the city is to be understood as a system. So this, in order to move towards sustainability, what we need as a prerequisite is a local government. A local government that is representative and has an autonomy to allocate resources in response to the demands of the citizens. Now, without this local government and a strong local government, it by helping them to describe aims and objectives, propose initiative and services in a manner that is consistent with other cities, and to develop a comprehensive checklist of key aspects and domains. So I will elaborate this as that what we are moving toward is an information management system. That a city system cannot work without an information system that helps different partners and stakeholders to communicate with each other. So the main objective is to identify opportunities and potential areas for collaboration and innovation, to improve communication and communicate priorities clearly to citizens, frame and support emerging processes and citizens' demands, and identify standards relevant to the needs. The checklist will help to review and evaluate its strengths and weaknesses and set priorities, develop comprehensive set of evaluation criteria and assess the success of projects, and review potential projects, their impacts and sustainability. So here now I go into the three parts of the layer. So there are different layers there, and the first layer is referred to as the structure of the city. The structure of the city has further three layers. There is the environment, infrastructure, and the built domain. So the environment is something which existed from before the city actually came into being. For example, taking Karachi in sort of, it started to emerge as a settlement, proper settlement in 1728-29 with the building of the fortification and the native jetty. So that is when it started to take on a shape, but the environment existed from before that. The mangroves, the coastal areas, the rivers, the hills, the topography of and the soil conditions. So all these existed from before that. So the environment actually existed from before this, and the built environment or the built domain, which can range from anywhere to one small settlement to a neighborhood or a town or you may say the whole city. Karachi, as you know, comprises now of about 21 towns. So there is this is a large city and a large urban area and expanding. So the interaction between the society is broadly a layer of citizens and government, and the citizens may be described as individuals or families and households or as organizations. An organization can be a commercial organization, a private organization, and the government. And so the government is basically somebody with a legitimacy to legislate and to execute and to defend. So there's a government has is thought of as different to the citizens. And the interaction between the society and the structure actually creates layers of functions, culture, economy, information systems. And here, so we go on to describe the environment as a context, infrastructure, which includes communication and energy networks, matter and water cycles. So all these, the built domain, as I've already explained, includes neighborhoods and cities. They may be public or private places, and expressing the material culture and fulfilling the conditions. And this I describe as the interaction layer and the society layer. So now, having described briefly this framework, what we move on to is, because the city is a living thing. It is real, and there are something which each individual perceives in a different manner, and groups of people respond to the way city develops and city grows in different manners. And but when one looks at it from modeling point of view, it is an abstract thing. It is not something which is very real. So when we talk about structures and environment and society, they are abstract concept. So when we attempt to specify the abstract model, then we actually use a term or a system which we call ontology. So ontology is a conceptualization of the abstract. It is explicit as a particular type with a certain limitation. For example, if we say electricity, then electricity is a subclass of the energy cycle, and the energy cycle itself is a subclass of the infrastructure, and infrastructure is a subclass of the city structure, and the city structure is a subclass of the city system itself. So this, creating that hierarchy to understand the relationship between of that particular element in the whole is what we term as ontology. And ontology actually, the ontology of the city anatomy is because of its complex and spread out nature, has to be machine readable. It cannot be something which we can just figure it out on paper. It needs to go on a computerized system. It needs to be modeled like that, and then to be understood how the relationship works. For example, what will happen if we raise the electricity bill by 50 paisa per unit, then what will be its impact on fuel consumption? What will be its impact on children going to school? Will there be a dropout or not? So to understand this relationship, we need this descriptive framework as a city anatomical ontology. And so here, this is just an example of how we actually create that hierarchy. As I told you, that there is a city indicator, and then there is an indicator which is a subclass. It has a purpose. It is derived from some raw data, is an element of some measurable thing, has type of some unit of measure, has value, which is some measure. So the whole framework is made in such a way that it becomes machine readable. And so this is further elaboration of the same anatomy. Now, one of the things which really limits the application of this to the Pakistan situation is the local institutional context. The institutions or accepted way of doing things are in a stage of transformation in Pakistan. In Pakistan, things are moving or very rapidly changing, and so the society is not yet come to a standard or is ready to accept a standard, because different people sort of live with a different notion of what is a standard. So you may have people, you may apply a certain rule, and there will be a large number of people who will not accept that rule. For example, you might put a red light and say this is where the traffic should stop, but you will still find a lot of people breaking the red light, because we are rapidly transforming and different people live with different values. For some people, it is more valuable to break the red light than others who would not want to break the red light. So this society is in that level, so where we have not come to a standard value. Second is that the relations are constrained, and constrained by limitation of trust. We do not trust each other. This deficit of trust is a major institutional limitation. Then data and information have limited objectivity and representation. Many of us work with data. For example, we work with the census data, and so there's a large population and decision makers who say this census results or information is not correct. So they do not see that as an objective information or objective data, and therefore, and not as something which is representative of the population. Information sharing is limited and non-consensual. Many of us have a lot of information, especially the government departments, but they do not share that information. They do not share it with each other, and in many cases, the shared information does not have a consensus on it. Some would say that, oh, this department would say that the rainfall this year was so much, and then the other department would say, no, it was not this much, it was this much. So that consensus on the information is also missing. Then the information sharing framework is not systematic and not coordinated. We have a lot of information, but they are not coordinated. There is many duplication, and you will find people going and doing a research on the same thing again and again. And the process moves on external priorities and not representative of the internal dynamics. So if the World Bank says do this, we will do it, irrelevant of whether we need it or not. And if the World Bank says that there's so much poverty, we will accept that and not really look at our own data and our own survey. So in conclusion, I would say one thing, that resilience is a component of sustainability. Resilience is not separate from sustainability. Without resilience, we would not be able to move towards sustainability. And external factors like climate change, globalization, and regional insecurities have weakened the resilience. The descriptive framework is valid for Pakistani cities, settlements and cities, provided that we are able to overcome the institutional constraints. And institutional characteristics do constrain the use of city anatomical ontology, but more important is that we do not have the local government to actually implement this framework. So my recommendation is that professional bodies and institutions can learn the city anatomical ontology, like Institute of Engineers Pakistan or Institute of Architects Pakistan or some other, and they can learn, and they can play a lead role in overcoming institutional constraints. Academic institutions, particularly those working with youth on social entrepreneurship, can support incubation and startup projects, which can help to create a more systemic information system, and therefore create a more broad-based consensus on how the city should develop. UN resources may be harnessed to develop the city anatomical ontology on pilot basis, and for town level. I would say Karachi is too big a place to actually start doing it. We should start doing it at the town level. For example, take Gulshan town or take some other town and do this. Community level initiative can be helped to scale up using the city anatomical ontology, and therefore these small scale activities, like perhaps those happening even in Tharpakar or someplace else in a small community, can link up with the global through this descriptive framework, because whether the settlement is small with only one household or it has more than 20 million households, the framework is applicable to both, to all that range. And citizen groups who are advocating for strengthening the local government may start a systemic process for vision building and prioritization using this framework. Thank you. Thank you for having me here and listening patiently to the whole thing.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Fazal Noor emphasized on the role of local government for development of descriptive framework to evaluate and transform cities, and how descriptive framework can also be used to monitor and plan for city anatomy ontology. He explained what is ecosystem and its layers. Now it's time for the presentation of sustainable gifts to our speakers. Our sustainable gifts include an indoor plant with a pot made of fly ash, a recycled bag prepared at NAD University from the wrappers of potato chips, and other conference material which is published on recycled paper. I would request Dr. Saroj Hashmat Lodi, Vice Chancellor, NAD University of Engineering and Technology, to please come on the stage for the presentation of our sustainable gifts to our speakers. I now request Ms. Sabeen Shah, our first speaker for this session, to please come forward and receive her gift. And I request Dr. Ghulam Rasool to please come forward to receive his mementos.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I now request Mr. Muhammad Fazal Noor, our third speaker for this session, to please come forward. Thank you, sir. It's time for the lunch and prayer break. We will join again here, the Crystal Ballroom, for our technical session number 7 at 2. Thank you so much for your time.